You're listening to Sploosh. A few months ago, we put out an open call for Singaporean writers to record their works with us for production and publication. Now, we are proud to present 3 poems and 4 short stories by Noor, Amanda Ray Ching Flynn, and Benedict Lim. Enjoy.
What do you think of when you hear the word home? How does it make you feel? Have you tried making a home? Hello, welcome to The National, an API that has collected the lives of 3 Malaysians building their home in Singapore. Set amidst the city-state's National Day celebrations across 1966, 1999, and 2020. Our protagonists in each time period trudges against the currents of the social order to carve out a space in which they belong. " 2020 Eden. With nothing to do after yet another episode of Getting Ghosted, I head to the waterfall at the center of Jewel. At once, all I could hear is the waterfall. The sound covers everything. It drowns the pseudo-zen chimes the mall is playing. I feel it wrestle over the spaces underneath the leaves of the trees here. It pervades even the deepest corners of my mind, and I feel I am nothing but a dull white of the falling water. The trees around it are still, unmoving, like unhappy children who are told not to go outside. So this is Eden, my name fully realized in steel and glass. Everything inside it feels too precious to touch. It's a museum, and even the trees feel like they're behind some glass wall. The lonely Lang family of 3 was here just last Christmas. It might as well be a figment of our imaginations. My mother rushed to buy me clothes at Uniqlo and Nike, hating that I kept wearing the same black clothes. By 2 in the afternoon, my father needed another jolt of caffeine, so we settled at the Starbucks Reserve for an hour or 2. The 3 of us marveled at the performers during the evening show around the vortex, as bubbles like snow floated among the trees. In that afternoon, the Lang family was finally together. It felt like we've been living here all our lives, or at least half of it. But that illusion would cease whenever they asked me which train to board at the MRT. I'd always feel like they're asking someone other than their son for directions. In that moment, I become a stranger. Maybe it's because I wanted to stay here in Singapore. Even when I lost my job right as the collective shit hit the fan. My parents, out of concern, want me to be back home. During my weekly Skype calls with them, they'd also subtly hint at that there are still plane tickets back to Miri, that the borders might close, that my social visit pass would soon expire. It'd be my last chance. My father would continue on reassuring me he still has his job. There'll be enough for all of us at home. At the very least, we'll be together. My mother would look at me intently, her lips pursed, her frown as deep as my father's. The plants I've always had now feel like the leaves on the floor here. You never notice them fall. You'd already find them on the ground, unmoving. My eyes aim at the perfect circle above me, the water fluttering as it falls. Again, that dream plays in my head. I remember falling with the water around me before my body hit into a dark pool. As I fell, there'd be two hands with thumbs outstretched appearing from the surrounding mist, and they'd gently touch my temples. And then I'd find myself beside a river, surrounded by the tallest trees I've ever seen. When I looked into the water, I'd see a different reflection of me. I was a woman. Then I'd see 7 pigs slain before being enveloped in a haze of brown and gold dust. I'd hear a coconut being cracked, with chanting and the dizzying wall of drums surrounding me. Another shaman would wave a dead fowl across this dark, endless room. It was terrifying to feel him dancing around so swift in the dark. Then I'd step out in an Ibanese woman garb, which I'd seen before in some civics textbook when I was in secondary school. Always I'd wake up at that point, and there'd be a rattle in my bones. I got used to it as I grew up, but when I was a kid, my grandmother would be right there if I woke up afraid. It's always like she knew when I would have that dream. She'd hand me a glass of water, then she'd stroke my hair, and her soft coos faded into the night only as I returned to sleep. Then she'd always nag at me if I'd forgotten about that dream of becoming a shaman again. She'd talk to me about it as if she was actually inside that dream. Don't you see? Don't you understand? You are a vessel of the celestial. You've transcended. You can heal, she always says. I'm supposed to tell you to heed that dream, that calling, but you already have enough worries weighing on your chest. When I pestered her about what she actually meant, she'd only say, you won't be able to understand until you do. I don't think I ever did, though. This body of mine was never my own. There's a different copy of myself living inside of me. Even my scoliosis plays into this, because I'd always know the bones that are crooked, out of place. And it didn't matter if I have what most would deem as a masculine body. Because in my voice I can feel this otherness living inside of me. When I talk, everyone asks me to repeat myself, and it's like whatever I say in my own voice will never make sense. By the time it leaves my mouth, this otherness garbles it, and I have to take another breath to force it out. And when I do say what I think, I'd just be met by a silence, and the conversation would just move on. I told my grandmother all of that before, about this feeling of otherness in my body. She told me that I was of this earth, that my place is still in the here and now. Even if I am the bridge to the other world, I would still have my time here. Then she'd ramble on about me needing to find the right balance between my tubuh, my body, and my semangat, my soul. Only that I could make sense of, because it echoed what my therapist told me, to always be aware of what my body is feeling. I tried, but I just couldn't. Everything inside me feels jumbled up, like a mesh of threads. So, if I don't even belong in my body, what hope do I have of finding where I belong? A little boy brushes my knee and runs off, chasing another girl, presumably his sister. And the boy sent my gaze once again to the crowd around me. Lovers, family, friends, people with people, people belonging to people. I remember once I told a one-night stand about this. He just shrugged and told me that the search for belonging never ends, that I can only go along with it. His reply surprised me. Not everyone has the luxury to wax poetic, but I wanted to see how far he could go. I told him, maybe we're all born travelers, and only some of us are lucky enough to find, at the very least, the feeling of home. He didn't reply, and left. I wonder what my parents would think about all these ruminations of otherness. My father found gay porn on my phone before, when I was 16. He confronted me during his trips here over Gawai Dayak, when he could stay for an extra day or two because of the holiday. He asked me over the last dinner we had before he flew home. I told him I just thought about it. At the back of my head, I was thinking if I would still finish the twak he brought over. It was a phase, I said. It is decidedly not. He asked me if I was seeing other women. I told him yes. He asked me who. I told him my friends. This is true, too. My father asked me to stop sleeping with men, that I have a future to think about, that I have him and my mother, that just because he's not there, I couldn't just do whatever I want. There's a price to freedom, he said. I almost wanted to tell him I was sure I am the last of our bloodline. So maybe this is why I want to stay here. At least there's an illusion to chase, even if nothing will come out of my ambition. I can't face them anymore, knowing I could never give them peace. The light from outside the triangular windows far above me is still too bright. So I decide to go home. I catch myself, for I am only returning to my rented room in someone else's house. I am boarding no plane. Instead, I will be stepping into a train, in a tunnel buried so deep that it feels like an electric shock once it sees the light of day again. I get to the elongated vestibules that will lead me to the MRT station, past the swarms of people heading to the mall, talking and laughing. Seeing everyone walking so surely into Jewel reminded me of when I crossed the causeway from Johor Bahru into Singapore back in March, before the borders closed. It wasn't a hot day, but the engines from the trucks and the motorcycles that tore down the causeway engulfed me. As I walked down the slope, I noticed there were no cars around the middle. Only the trucks were idling impatiently. I was walking by myself, though there were sparse crowds before me and behind me. It wasn't a march or a huddled mass. That would come later, as the others complete the last stretch of their journey. I saw no faces of the people who went before me, as well as the ones after me. The wind carrying all of us. They closed 2 immigration counters after I joined the queue. I could only wait. It would take another hour before I officially crossed into Singapore. What felt like an inkling of purpose dropped into my head. Or maybe I was just borrowing the sense of purpose from everyone else. I felt relief in my veins. It's the closest feeling I'd ever feel to dodging a bullet. I didn't even think about getting infected. I realized that relief was covered with foreboding as it coursed through every inch of my veins. It feels like I've severed something. Even when I got what I wanted, that social visit pass. May it one day be a permanent residence card. And now I look at the long, hallowed halls of the airport's MRT station. The train bound for Tanah Merah finally arrives. Along with a small crowd, I board it. The train lurches forward, digging its wheels after an impatient wait at the station. It's only now I realized the people who cross the causeway, with or without the pandemic, I belong to them.